The franchise known as Marvel exists within the multiverse, overseen by an entity known as the Living Tribunal, and created by a being known as the One Above All, an allegory for the God of Abraham. Through the publications of comic books, movies, TV shows, games, toys, and other means of entertainment and merchandise, allows people to engage in escapism for their day-to-day lives, even if just for a little while. This allowed the audience to feel empowered, regardless of how small or how old they may be. So let's put the monotony of our day-to-day lives aside for a moment and enjoy the fantastical. Greetings and welcome to Checkpoint Gaming. With a series of episodes, we will be going over how to play the game Marvel Crisis Protocol. With Marvel Crisis Protocol, it's created and published by Atomic Mass Games. For this episode, it will introduce you to the game and go over its setup. With Marvel Crisis Protocol is a tactical tabletop miniatures game where each player will construct a team of heroes and villains that are pulled from across the Marvel Universe and then pitted against other such teams in battle. It is up to the player to lead these teams in order to achieve a given set of objectives which are to be determined at the start of the game. Using the combined might of their characters, the player aims to overcome the competition and achieve victory. This is a two-player game where each player will select a squad of Marvel characters from a recruitment pool and cast over a customized battlefield in an attempt to be the first player to complete their given objectives. Their players will also work together in order to set up the battlefield and determine where the features and obstacles are to be found. Once this has been completed, randomly draw from a selection of crisis cards in order to determine what the mission is going to be. After determining the mission, each player will call upon the roster in order to form their squad, which should have the best mixture of skills and abilities for the task at hand. From there, the two squads will compete in order to complete said mission. With each game is played in rounds where each squad will earn victory points when they complete objectives found upon the crisis card. The first player to score 16 victory points is deemed the winner. Regardless of the rules that are found in the core rulebook and thus addressed here in this series, they are classified as basic. With that said, there will be some special rules, superpowers, and or team tactic cards that will contradict this information. When this occurs, the special rules will take precedence. When creating a mission is done by combining two crisis cards and will consist of one of each type of crisis, a secure type and an extraction type. And it is through these cards that each player will score victory points. Each crisis card will consist of the following parts: their crisis name, their crisis type, the maximum threat, setup, scoring, rules, and set symbol. The crisis name, it is, you guessed it, the name of the given crisis. The crisis type, it indicates if it's a secure or extraction type. The maximum threat, it represents the peak threat level that a squad can potentially face. With setup, it indicates what type of objective tokens are to be placed onto the battlefield and will reference a map that will illustrate where the objective tokens are to be placed. And when the scenario cards indicate the same or similar placement of the tokens with their placement overlapping, then stack the tokens on top of each other. Also measure to the center of the objective token when placing them during setup. With scoring, it explains what the conditions are for a player to score victory points. With the rules, they explain how the characters are able to interact with any of the given objective tokens of the given crisis, as well as what any of these specific rules happen to be. When a character is currently holding an objective token, they cannot voluntarily drop it. And with the set symbol, it indicates what set the given card is pulled from. When it comes to that, the priority, it will determine the turn order during any given round and be tracked using the priority token. So the player that possesses the priority token is the player who has priority for that given round and thus goes first. Regarding the mission tracker, it is a dashboard that will help the players keep track of their current victory points as well as the current round of the game. The players are to move their victory points token along their respective track that are found upon the mission tracker dashboard. For the heroes and villains that are used for the game, they are collectively known and referred to as characters. With each character, they are represented by a detailed miniature which are to be assembled and painted before play begins, or it would be bridged in half or to be done during the game itself. Each character will also bring their own special powers and abilities, which are known as attacks and superpowers for the players to use to complete their objectives and are listed upon the character's stat card. With the rules, they will often use the term allied and enemy when referring to the characters. When a given player controls a squad of characters, they are considered to be allied to said character, while characters that were controlled by the opposing player were considered to be the enemy. When an effect will allow a player controlling an enemy character, said character isn't considered to be part of any given squad when it comes to that team tactic cards or leadership abilities. When it comes to that of the character's stat card, it will list all of the character's information. This information is known as stats, which is pretty obvious and is what the player needs to know about that character in order for them to be used during the game. These stat cards are also double-sided, with one side being the healthy side and the other being the injured side. The players can tell which side is which by the color of the icons found upon them, where teal represents the healthy side and orange represents the injured side. At the start of the game, the healthy side of the stat card is face up. But as the game progresses and the catcher sustains damage, they become injured and their respective stat card will have to be flipped to the injured side. It is worth noting that the damage icon is that of 3 claw marks. Found on each character card are the following parts: character name, alter ego, stats, leadership, superpowers, stamina, speed, size, threat level, physical defense, energy defense, and mystic defense. With the character name, it is, you guessed it, the name of the given character. With the alter ego, it is the character's everyday persona and is used to identify any duplicate characters found upon a given player's squad. With attacks, it lists the attacks that are available to the character, and it consists of physical, energy, and mystic, which are represented by a fist, a vortex, and an eye, respectively. With leadership, it lists the character's leadership abilities, if applicable, and is represented by a star. Regarding leadership abilities, they can affect the entire squad, and only certain characters possess them. With superpowers, it lists the character's superpowers, and there are 3 types: active, reactive, and innate. These superpower types are represented by a cross, 3 electrical symbols, and an infinity symbol, respectively. With stamina, it represents the maximum amount of damage that the character can take before they become dazed or are knocked out. With speed, it represents the character's ability to move upon the battlefield and is divided into short, medium, and long, represented by an S, M, and L, respectively. Regarding the size of the measurement tool, its length represents the maximum distance the character can move. With size, it represents the physical size of the given character, because of course it would. It also doesn't correspond to the base size or the size of the respective miniature. It's also used for measurement purposes and in order to determine line of sight. With threat level, it is used to determine which characters are able to be used for a given threat. With physical defense, it represents the character's ability to withstand physical attacks and the number of dice that a player will roll when the character is the target of a physical attack. With energy defense, it represents the character's ability to withstand energy attacks and is the number of dice that the player will roll when their character is the target of an energy attack. With mystic defense, it represents the character's ability to withstand mystic attacks and the number of dice that the player will roll when the character is the target of a mystic attack. When it comes to that of terrain features and tokens, they are referred to collectively as objects. With effects, they are things that are caused by superpowers, attacks, special rules, team tactics, and crisis cards. When a rule makes a reference to energy effects or allied effect, it refers to any result an effect will have upon an enemy or allied character. But when it comes to that of crisis card effects, they will not have any bearing upon any enemy or allied effects. There will also be times when an effect will occur after something else has happened. This causes the effect to happen once the thing gets completed. There are some effects where it'll say that a character will be capable of doing something, while some other effects will say that a character won't be able to do something. In situations where these opposing effects are applied to the same character, the can't effect will override the can effect. There are also some effects that will instruct the player to have a number, either a character stat or a die roll value. In situations like this, always round the final result up. When affected, each character or object can only be affected with the same named effect once. When it comes to that of a character's stack stats, they represent how the character fights in battle. And no matter what the attack type is, they are all translated through the following properties. With type, they consist of either physical, energy, or mystic, and are represented upon the character card by a respective icon and color. With name is the name of the attack, and it is the primary narrative element that can be reflected by special rules. With range, which is represented by a cross, it represents the maximum distance that a target is able to be away from the attacker for an attack to be effective. This number runs from 1 through 5 and it corresponds to the range tools. With strength, it is represented by a dumbbell and it is the number of dice that are to be rolled for a given attack. With power cost, it is the amount of power represented by a starburst that have to be spent in order to perform a given attack. And with special rules, there are any special rules that relate to the given attack. With the characters that are found within the game, they represent extraordinary individuals which are the result of things such as intense training, gamma rays, cosmic rays, or scientific alterations. Because of this, they allow the characters to perform what is seen as superhuman feats that are known in-game as superpowers. With type, they can be that of active, reactive, or innate, and the superpower types are represented upon the character card with their respective icon. With name is the name of the superpower and are primarily a narrative element that can be referenced by special rules. With power cost is the amount of power that will have to be spent in order to use that given superpower, although not all superpowers possess a power cost. With special rules, they will discuss the effect of a given superpower and any requirements that they might possess. With the superpower's type, which is identified by the respective icon, it will denote when and how said superpower can be used. The active superpowers, they can be used anytime during the character's activation. Some active superpowers will require a character to use an action in order for them to be used. If this is the case, then the word action will be found before the rule's effect. With the reactive superpowers, they require a triggering event in order for them to be used. And for every triggering event, a reactive superpower can be used, but only once. With innate superpowers, they don't need to be activated and they have no power cost. And when a character possesses a dazed token, they will be unable to benefit from any other innate superpowers. There are also some innate superpowers that are very common across the game and are represented by keywords found upon the stat cards. And since their full rules are listed upon the stat cards, we'll address them here. With immunity, it causes the character to not suffer any of the listed special conditions. So if the character has a special condition and they gain immunity, then said character will remove that special condition. With both flight and wall crawler, when placing the movement tool during an advanced movement, the character will count as being size 5. With Gem Bearer, it allows the character to use an infinity gem and it indicates which gems that character might possess. It is also worth noting that any given character can only possess a single infinity gem at any given time. In addition to this, each character can only contain one of each Infinity Gem. In order to indicate Infinity Gems within their squad, the player will have to first include a character that can use them in their roster. And once that character is able to take an Infinity Gem, they can take one which will increase the character's threat level by the value that is listed upon the Infinity Gems card and use their new combined threat value when included in the player's squad. From there, place the Infinity Gems card next to the character's stat card. This will indicate that they possess that Infinity Gem. During the power phase, characters that possess an Infinity Gem will gain one additional power token for every gem that they possess. With some superpowers, it allows the character to transform into other forms, and when a character that possesses multiple forms gets deployed upon the battlefield, they are always deployed in their normal form. To differentiate between the normal form and the transformed form, these different forms will either represent half of the character's card or a different stat card altogether. When in their normal form, the character will use the attack, superpowers, speed, and size that is listed underneath the normal header or card. But when they're transformed, they will use the attacks, superpowers, speeds, and size that are listed upon the transformed header or card. But no matter what form the character takes, the split cards will always use the same defense values, threat value, and stamina. And characters that have separate form cards will use the stats that are listed upon the corresponding form stat card. Whenever an effect or superpower causes a character to transform, use the following steps to do so. First, place the miniature of the new character form that said character is transforming into onto the battlefield within range 1 of his current position. And second, remove the miniature of the old character form from the battlefield. This is because the new form represents said character. With the transformed character, they're still the same character, so any effects, special conditions, or tokens connected with it will remain after the character has transformed. How and when a character is able to transform is addressed in their various attack, superpowers, special rules, and tactic cards. And if a character gains any new immunities when in their new form, then the character will immediately remove any relevant special conditions from themselves. It is also important to read the character's forms carefully and to ensure that they're being played at their best. With the healing factor, after each activation, the character with a superpower can remove any amount of damage from themselves. And with grunts, they count as characters but cannot be included upon the player's roster or squad. There are also some characters that come with a special rule that allows them to place grunts into play. With the grunt character, it lists the characters who are able to put them into play, which is found after the grunts keyword upon their stat cards. The characters that can put them into play are known as parent characters. When a parent character gets deployed during the deployment phase, their corresponding grunt character is also deployed, making them part of the player's squad. The only other way for grunt characters to be put into play is through the use of special rules of the given parent characters. But if a grunt character is to be deployed and there's already an allied grunt character found in play, then the yet to be deployed grunt character cannot be deployed. Grunts also come with a number of special rules that separate them from that of the standard characters. First, a player can only have one grunt character in play at any given time. Second, grunt characters cannot be chosen to activate during the turn. Instead, if they don't possess an activated token, one grunt character will activate, which occurs at the same turn as the parent character activation. At the end of the activation, the player's turn doesn't end, so the grunt character's parent character gets to activate. Third, if all the parent characters that are associated with the grunt are dazed, an activation token is to be added to that given grunt character. But if all the parent characters for a given grunt are knocked out, changed controllers, or are removed from the game, then the grunt character is removed from the game. Fourth, if the grunt character would change controllers, remove the grunt character from the game instead. Fifth, grunt characters do not possess an injured side to the given stat card. Whenever a grunt character would get dazed or otherwise have the stat card flipped to the injured side, they get knocked out instead. Sixth, at the start of the player's turn and all other non-grunt characters possess an activated token, then all the grunt characters said player controls will also gain an activated token. Seventh, grunt characters are unable to gain or possess power and cannot play any team tactic cards. And eighth, grunt characters are unable to be selected by the effects that are associated with the allied team tactic cards. Although every character found in the game possesses incredible powers and abilities, there are some that stand above their peers as leaders of some of the most famous teams found in the franchise. When a squad possesses a character that has a leadership ability and said squad belongs to the squad affiliation, then the leadership ability of said character will activate within that given game. What this means is that during the game, the squad will gain the effect of that given leadership ability while the character that possesses is found upon the battlefield. But if there are multiple characters found within a squad that possess leadership abilities that can be used, then the controlling player will have to choose which leadership ability is to be used for the rest of the game after the squad gets deployed. Regardless of how they go about this, every character relies upon a special resource that is known as power in order for them to use the strongest attack and superpowers. In order to track a character's power is done through the use of placing power tokens upon said character's stat card, with this character gaining power tokens equal to the amount of power they have obtained. Regarding the maximum amount of power a character is able to possess equal out of 10, with any power beyond that getting lost. Whenever a character either spends or loses power, they remove the power tokens from said character's stat card equal to the amount as either spent or lost. Characters are also unable to spend or lose more power than they have upon their given stat card. And when a character doesn't have enough power in order to pay the power cost of a given attack or superpower, then said attack or superpower cannot be used. Also, when a superpower or attack possesses a certain cost in order for it to be used, said cost cannot be reduced. but if an effect will cause a character to lose more power than they currently possess, then they will lose all of their available power instead. The most common way for a character to gain power is through the taking of damage from enemy effects. But with that said, they can also gain power through the use of special rules, objectives, superpowers, and other effects. In order to play the game, unique 8-sided dice are used to determine the outcome of minigame effects. But with that said, they're most commonly used for the purposes of attacking and defending. The markings found upon the dice sides consist of the following: critical, wild, hit, block, blank, and failure. With critical, it is represented by an exclamation mark that's found on one side, while that dice during an attack and defense roll will typically count as a success. With wild, it is represented by a swirl that's found on one side, will trigger special abilities or reference special rules, and will typically count as a success. With hit, it is represented by an explosion is found on two sides, and when attacking, they typically represent successes that won't trigger other effects. With block, it is represented by a shield that's found on one side, and it typically represents successes that won't trigger other effects. With blink, it has no icon, it is found on two sides, and will typically have no effect upon the situation. And with failure, it is represented by a skull that's found on one side, and they can't be rerolled or modified. When it comes to that of measurement devices, there are two variants: range tools and movement tools. Although any distance is measured using a measurement tool, players can only use a single range tool or a single movement tool at any given time when making measurements during the game, and only take into account the horizontal distance when measuring. With range tools, they come in 4 ranges that have 2 through 5, and they're used to measure distances for attacks, actions, and abilities. When it comes to that of range 1, it is determined by using the width of any given range tool. But when it comes to that of movement tools, they're used for measuring distances for advances, throws, and pushes. There are also 3 measurement tool types: short, medium, and long, and only 1 movement tool can be used at a time for measuring purposes. When it comes to that of measuring distance, place the appropriate tool upon the battlefield with one end touching the object or character's base that's being measured from to the object or character that's making the attack that is using the relevant action or ability. But if this isn't possible, then hold the measuring tool above the battlefield and check the position based upon the measuring tool. When an effect says that an object or character will have to be found within a certain distance from another object or character, then the object or character is considered to be within said distance of any part of the object or character's base and found within said distance of any part of the other object or character's base. It's worth noting that an object or character is always considered to be within range of itself. With the end section of the measurement tool, it is the curved portion of it, and when it is placed in contact with the character's base will have to be in contact with both points of the tool's curved section. But with the end section of the range tool, it is flat, and when it is used to measure, do so from the flat end to the other flat end. The player is also unable to use the opposite corners of the measured distance as measured along the length of the tool when measuring range. When measuring range for an attack, it is done before the attack is made. So any characters found within range of an attack at the start of the attack phase, they still count as being in range when it comes time to make an attack. This means that range is not to be measured again once a new position is made. With the team tactic cards, they are special team-up powers or cinematic events that can be used during the game and can vary greatly in their effect and will usually have a power cost in order for them to be used. They're also part of the player's roster and can be chosen during squad building, with the parts consisting of name, squad affiliation, type, and rules. With a name, it is, you guessed it, the name of the card. With squad affiliation, it indicates if that card is unaffiliated or is affiliated. With the unaffiliated card, it can be used by any squad, while affiliated cards is specific to a given squad. If it's squad affiliated, then a squad will have to use that squad affiliation in order for them to use said card during a given mission. With type, it denotes when the card is able to be played, which can be done at any time during the player's turn. But with that said, the team tactic card can only be played when the listed trigger condition has been met and can only be used once per any given triggering event. And finally, with rules, it tells how the card is to be played and what effect it will have upon the game. With the playing of the team tactic card, the player will have to follow the instructions that are listed upon the card, select a target or targets, and pay the power or any other cost as listed upon the card. Once played, the team tactic card is to be discarded and can't be used again for the remainder of the game. Team tactic cards also cannot be kept secret during the game, thus allowing the other player to know what their opponent is capable of doing. Before battle is able to begin, the player will have to set up the battlefield, create a mission, and create their squad of characters based upon the crisis cards. What follows are the rules for creating a battlefield, mission, and roster, as well as how to start the game. The player's roster, it consists of 3 categories: team, team tactic cards, and crisis cards. For the team, it consists of any 10 characters that a player chooses from their given collection, and when building a team, there's no restriction when it comes to that of pairing characters. What this does is allow heroes and villains to be put together on a team. And though the team can consist of any crisis protocol characters, it cannot contain multiples of the same character who possess the same character name and alter ego. Each player will also select 10 different team tactic cards for the given roster. In the select of the characters, the player will use all of their chosen team tactic cards when engaging in a mission. A single copy of each team tactic card is allowed to be included in the roster. Finally, the player will have to select which crisis cards their team might be able to use, which will consist of 3 secure crisis cards and 3 extraction crisis cards. These cards are used to build a mission, and the player can only use 1 copy of each crisis card with the roster. With a battlefield, it consists of a 3-foot by 3-foot play area and can comprise of anything the player can imagine as well as what is found in their terrain collection. Each battlefield will have to consist of a mixture of terrain features of various sizes and shapes that are not only destructible, but will also block movement and line of sight. A minimum of 12 terrain pieces should be used and range from size 1 to size 5, with the majority of them being size 2 through 4. Regarding the terrain, both players should agree upon their placement and distribution upon the battlefield. The terrain should also be at least range 2 from any given battlefield edge or another terrain piece. The battlefield should also be created before the players create their squads, select their team tactic cards, or draw the crisis cards. When the battlefield is ready, the player will determine who will be starting the game, which is done by each player rolling 5 dice, with the player rolling the most criticals, wilds, and hits taking the priority token. But if a tie is to occur, then the priority token is equal to the player who rolled the most criticals. If a tie still occurs, they continue this process using the wilds as a tiebreaker, followed by using the hits. But if there's still a tie after going through this process, then players will have to re-roll, following the rules that have just been described until the tie is broken. After setting up the battlefield and determining priority, each player will choose a crisis card from the given roster. After drawing these 2 crisis cards, they are to be combined in order to create the game's mission. But the player's roster includes 6 different crisis cards that are evenly split into secure crisis cards and extraction crisis cards, with each mission consisting of 1 secure crisis card and 1 extraction crisis card, with the specifics each only being revealed once both players have chosen their respective crisis cards. For the secure crisis cards, they typically specify important elements that are found upon the battlefield that the players will have to claim, while extraction crisis cards will typically see the placement of something onto the battlefield that the characters will have to obtain and care for the duration of the mission, which can be any item that the player can think of or is referenced upon the card itself. The player that possesses the priority token will choose one of their given decks, shuffle it, and then draw a single crisis card from it. From there, the other player will shuffle their deck of the other crisis card type and draw a single card from it. After both players have drawn their crisis cards, they are to reveal them simultaneously. Once this has been completed, the player that doesn't have the priority token will then select the maximum threat value from either card that will be the value used for that given mission. Once that has been completed, place both cards in an area that is easily accessible to both players, with the player that doesn't possess the priority token choosing the battlefield edge they will be using for their deployment edge. This will cause the opposite edge to be the deployment edge for the priority player. Each player will then set up the mission in accordance with the instructions found upon the chosen crisis cards. So the order of operation looks like this. First, the player with the priority token will choose a crisis card, either secure or extraction, for the corresponding deck. Second, the opposing player will draw a crisis card from the opposing deck. Third, the players will reveal these cards simultaneously. Fourth, the player that is without a priority token will choose the maximum threat value from one of the flipped crisis cards, which will be the threat value for the game. Fifth, the player that doesn't have the priority token will choose a table edge to represent their deployment zone, with the opposite edge representing the deployment zone player with the priority token. And sixth, each player will set up the mission in accordance with the instructions found upon the crisis cards. If a crisis card calls for the character to interact with its objective tokens, then it will include an interact ability within its special rules. So whenever a character is within range 1 of an objective token during their activation, they can spend 1 power to interact with said token. Although it is possible for a character to interact with multiple tokens during the activation, they cannot interact with the same token more than once for activation. And when a character interacts with an objective token, the results are listed upon the crisis card's special rules. With the objective tokens, there are 3 types: civilian, asset, and target of opportunity. With the civilian tokens, they represent high-value individuals whose rescuing or capture is vital to the advancement of the plot. Although civilians don't participate in the actual combat, not all of them are interested in being saved, but causing them to put up resistance to the characters. With the asset tokens, they represent key items that the characters are seeking to obtain. Regardless of the specifics, the assets that the characters are fighting over are central to the successfully resolving their crisis cards. The target of opportunity tokens represent critical locations or points of interest that the characters will have to secure and control. There are also some rules that will allow characters to pick up objective tokens. When the character picks up an objective token, then they are holding onto said token, which is to be placed onto the character's stat card. And if a character that is holding one or more objective tokens and gets staged or knocked out, then all of those objective tokens are to be placed onto the battlefield within range 2 of the character, with the opposing player placing them upon the battlefield. But if a character is unable to hold an objective token, then they will be unable to pick them up or have any objective tokens placed onto them in any way. It is worth noting that objective tokens don't have a size stat and they don't affect a character's movement. This makes it possible for a character's base to overlap the token. And when a character is found within range 1 of an objective token, the said character is contesting said token, the player that possesses the most healthy characters contesting it being the player to have secured said token. But if there is no healthy characters contesting a given objective token, then the player with the most injured characters contesting it will secure the objective instead. And a character that possesses a dazed token cannot contest an objective token. There are also some crisis cards that will allow the players to control certain objectives. When a player gains control of an objective, place a token upon it that shows they're in control of said objective and move any control tokens owned by another player. This is due to each objective only being allowed to be controlled by a single player at any given time. As long as the player's token remains upon an objective, said objective remains in said player's control, regardless of the proximity of any other characters upon the battlefield. Once a player secures 16 or more victory points, they will immediately win the game. And if both players score 16 or more victory points simultaneously, then the player that possesses the most victory points will be deemed the winner. But if there is a tie, then neither player will win. Instead, the game will continue until one player has scored more victory points than their opponent, which will cause that player to immediately win. But if neither player has won the game by the end of the 6th round, then the player who possesses the most victory points is deemed the winner. However, if both players are tied at this point in the game, then the game will continue until one player has scored more victory points than their opponent. And if only one player has characters found upon the battlefield, then said player will immediately win the game. Once a mission has been formed, each player will then build a given squad, which is done by the players selecting characters from the roster that has a combined threat value that is equal to or less than that established maximum threat value. Each player should also not reveal the contents of their given squad until it's time for them to deploy their characters. Although each team will have to consist of 10 characters, the players won't use all 10 of them during the game. Instead, the team will just provide options for the players to draw upon in order to build their squad based upon the classes being played. Each classes will also have rules pertaining to the maximum threat level that each player can use when constructing their given team. Because of this, it's best to include characters that have different threat levels when constructing a team, thus giving the player flexibility when it comes to constructing a team based upon the classes that is being played. Although there is an endless possibility of team-ups within the Marvel Universe, there are famous groups that work together in order to achieve their objectives. With Marvel Crisis Protocol, when building a squad for a given mission, the players can choose to use a specific affiliation, with each affiliation listing the specific characters that are found within it. In order for a squad to use a given squad affiliation, more than half of the squad will have to belong to the same affiliation. The squad can also only possess one single squad affiliation. With these squad affiliation lists, they are updated whenever new products are released, and these updated lists can be found at atomicmassgames.com/Marvel/OP as of the recording of this episode. But the player's given roster don't include a squad affiliation. Instead, when building a squad, the player will decide if they will be using a squad affiliation or not. Some rules will also use shorthand when referring to a given character's squad affiliation, such as calling a character an Avengers character. And if a character isn't upon a squad affiliation's given list, said character isn't part of said affiliation, even if they're a part of a squad that is using said affiliation. With the characters that possess leadership abilities, they can only be used if the player's given squad is using the appropriate affiliation. So with that said, Red Skull will not be able to lead the Avengers. And if a squad is built using multiple characters that possess the leadership ability for said affiliation, then the player will have to select which leadership abilities are to be used during the game and only use said leadership abilities. From there, the players declare their choice after they have developed their squad. When a character that possesses leadership abilities becomes dazed, they retain their leadership abilities but will lose their superpowers due to leadership abilities not qualifying as superpowers. But with that said, a character's leadership ability will no longer support a squad once that leadership character gets knocked out. Once the squad has become constructed, each player will choose the team tactic card they will be using during the game. When doing so, they will select up to 5 of them as listed upon their roster. And if they're going with a squad affiliation during the game, they can select team tactic cards that require said affiliation in order to be used. After revealing their squad and tactic cards, the players will alternate in deploying the characters, starting with the player that possesses the priority token. When deploying the character, it has to be within range 3 of the respective player's deployment edge, and once all of the characters have been deployed, the game is ready to begin. When starting the game, start the first round to power phase. So with that said, that is what you need to know about setup for Marvel Crisis Protocol. With that taken care of, we can start talking about game mechanics. If you liked this episode, feel free to give it a like, and if you want to stay up to date on any future episodes we upload, go ahead and subscribe. You can also support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/checkpointgaming. See you in the next episode, and happy gaming.